using Dask. So in this session, we are going to essentially understand what is Dask basically, and we will also see why Dask is important in various circumstances, right? So I'll just the session is basically divided into two halves. So in the first, like let's say 20 to 25 minutes, I'm going to take up around 25 minutes to cover the PPT first, and then we will get into the code, wherein we will implement the Dask, the frameworks that we have in Dask, and also a machine learning model using Dask, right? All right, so let's get started. So the first thing that we need to understand here is why we need Dask. So the agenda points are like this. So we need to first understand what is the utilization of Dask, and then we're going to look at some of the Dask interfaces. So these interfaces are basically like the way we have in our Python programming, right? The NumPy, Pandas, Scikit-learn. So in a similar way, we also have interfaces in Dask, so which are quite similar to Python. So we are going to look at those things. And as I was talking about Dask interfaces, so Dask Arrays is one of those things, and Dask data frames are the second one, and Dask ML, wherein we will see a machine learning model using Dask. Finally, we will also do a comparison wherein we will see why we need Dask in comparison to an already present framework in the industry, which a lot of people use, right? And it's quite popular in the industry. It's called Spark. So we need to understand why Spark is important. We'll understand why Spark is important, and at the same time, we'll also know why Dask is important in comparison to Spark, and what is the advantage we have here, right? And the last thing is the demo case study that we have. So we will go through this demo case study in detail, right? And yeah, so I hope you guys are clear with the agenda. So we will go forward with our PPTs. And before going forward, I just wanted to introduce myself again because I think most of the audience for this session are from the previous session we had on Rapids, right? But still, I would like to introduce myself first, and then we will go forward. So my name is Varun Rao. I work as a data science researcher at Insight. So essentially, when I say researcher, so all the material that you get on LMS or every query that you get resolved over academics email, everything. So we take care of those things at Insight, right? So we are a team of researchers, and today one of my colleagues is also hosting the session. And one thing I need to make sure here, please turn your chats to all panelists and attendees before we go forward, so that everyone in this session can look at your queries and your answers and everything. And secondly, if you have questions, so you can put here in chat box because I'm going to look at the chat box also. But if you want a specific answer for the query which is you have during the session, or maybe which is a little bit not related to session also, so put it in Q&A. So one of my colleague whose name is Himanka, he's also present with me today. So he's going to take up all these things in the Q&A section. So you will get your answers in the Q&A section, right? So please post your queries there. And if you have questions directly to me, you can post in the chat box here, right? So this is one thing that I wanted to clear first. So Tata Naidu says, where can we find the session recording? Yeah, Insight Thursdays. Yes, you will definitely get this recording in Insight Thursdays, because last time also when we had this uh, the session on Rapids, so we actually uploaded those material to Insight Thursdays, so you can find those things there. And tomorrow you'll also get an update for this as well, right? So Vinay Kumar says, nice to hear from you. You can explain again what is Dask? Yeah, we are starting with that, Vinay Kumar. So I was just going through the agenda for today, and now we'll focus on what is Dask, right? Definitely. All right, guys. So let's go forward. So why Dask, right? So first of all, Dask is a basically an open source library which is used for parallel computing. So when I say parallel computing, it's like you need all your computations to run together. So let's say you have a system in which you have multiple cores. So it can be quad core, it can be octa core, right? And if your task is if your computation is like of a smaller magnitude, probably your one of your core can take it off, take it up and do the computation. But let's say you have a big data set with you and you're working on a GBs of data set, right? Then probably there is a scenario wherein your computation needs to be faster, right? And how that computation can get faster is by parallel computation, right? So all your cores will be parallelized and all your jobs or the tasks, like let's say you're doing multiple tasks on your data set, right? So those things will be parallelized and it can be distributed within your core system, right? The cores present in your system. And this parallel computing will help you to fasten the task and complete your reading data set or ML model, anything you do easily. We will look at various examples on this definitely, and you can also understand from the code perspective, also from a systems perspective, right? Why Dask is important. So next thing that we can think of here is basically Dask is basically familiar with Python, right? How it is familiar? Because the APIs that we use in Python, such as NumPy, Pandas, scikit-learn, all these things, right? So Dask also have similar kind of APIs which are actually written in Python language. So that is one of the things that is advantages here. So when I say talk about Spark, or when I talk about any other system which handles big data or something, why Dask has an advantage for Python practitioners is because every line, code of line in Dask is written by Python only, right? There is no involvement of any other language. For example, in Spark, if we talk about, we have, I think Spark is written on Scala mostly, and then there's an inclusion of Java as well, and SQL, and also Python. So there are a mix of languages present in Spark. And if you want to transition from Python to Spark, you need to altogether understand the Spark's ecosystem. So that is one of the things that you need to understand, right? So in terms of familiarity, Python APIs such as NumPy, Pandas, and scikit-learn, you will also find the same kind of APIs in Dask. So you can utilize those things as you utilize in Python, and you can carry out your operations here. So next thing is Dask scales out to clusters, right? So clusters, when I say clusters, it's like you need to understand clusters in terms of, let's say you have a group, uh, you have one system here. Okay, this is not visible. You have one system here, and this is your personal PC, and you have another system which is of your friends or your colleague, and let's say you are 3-4 people. Okay, so you have a task which needs a lot of computation, right? And in terms of memory, also it takes a lot of space, right? So maybe your systems are limited to 4 GB RAM. Okay, let's assume that your systems are having this memory, and every system has similar thing. So if you have a computation which needs a lot of memory, let's say 16 GB, what you can do is you can actually connect all these systems together and you can make a cluster here. And how you do that? So we are not going to show how we can do the cluster, how we can form the clusters. However, we have given some links because it's altogether a different process, right? So if you want to create a cluster, you need to connect it through a secure shell, and basically you can use SSH, right? So you can use that and you can create a cluster, and that is altogether a different process which takes a lot of time as well, right? So this is one thing that is a cluster, as I was talking about. So Dask has an application of creating clusters, when you can join multiple systems together and create a cluster, and you can then do your computation, right? Okay, so if it's the computation cost is too much, right? And the second thing is like Dask scales down to single computer as well. So let's say again, let's take a case scenario where we have 4 GB RAM system. Okay, and if you have a data set which is of size, let's say 5 GB, 6 GB, or 7 GB, 8 GB, and what do you think? What you can do? Will your computations be efficient, or it's like more computationally costly? What do you think? Guys, I need answer here. If you have a 4 GB system, again, I'm going to repeat it again. Can you guys hear me? Okay, so the question here is if you have a 4 GB system with you, and usually this is the norm, right? Usually people have 4 GB system, and probably people who can afford more can buy 8 GB RAM or 12 GB or 16 GB RAM. Okay, so yeah, definitely. So you need to understand if you have a 4 GB RAM system and if you have a data set which is of 5 GB with lots of rows, like millions of rows, and how you're going to do that computation. So it's going to take up a lot of time, first of all, and it's computationally very costly, right? So there you need to understand how you can scale it down on a system and how you can utilize DAS there to do your computations. So let's come to that part. Okay. Uh, Okay, so I'll just explain something here. I'm going to ask a simple question here. Let's assume you have uh, a data set. So DS means data set type, okay, or let's say DST, data set type, okay. And second is the size range. So I'll write SR for size range. And third question I have is whether it fits in RAM of your system, okay. And the fourth question is whether it fits into your local system. So we have this 4 columns and I need some answers from you guys. So let's start with our first column and let's take it forward. Okay. So when I say dataset type, so the first question here is what kind of dataset types have you seen? If you can just give me one word answers about it. What are the different dataset types? Not in terms of CSV Excel, in terms of like small, medium, or large, or anything. Okay, I'll simplify this thing for you guys. Let's say I have small data set, I have medium, second category is medium, and third category is uh, large. So now I have 3 categories here in the dataset type. One is small, second is medium, third is large. Now I come to the second column, which is called size range. So can anyone tell me what would be the size range for a small dataset? What do you think would be the size for small dataset? 1 GB, okay. 10 MB, great. So according to your answers, what I can see is if you have a dataset between 2 to 4 GB, okay, if you have a dataset between 2 to 4 GB, we can consider that as a small dataset because it can fit in your systems. So the next question is whether it fits in your RAM or not. So essentially, if I'm taking the lowest grade RAM, which is 4 GB, yeah, it can fit in your system, fit in your RAM easily. So I'll put yes here. Okay, it fits in your local system. Yes, obviously it will fit in. Next, what is the range of medium? You think medium dataset till 1 TB? Okay, you're pretty close, Atul. I think you can go a little bit higher. Till 1 TB is good. Any more guesses we can have? 500 GB is 10 TB is too high, Vishal. Okay. 1 to 5 TB, yeah. 2 TB I can see. Who has given 2 TB? Yeah. Ajay Pranav, yes. Ajay, so you're right. So we can go till 2 TB for the medium dataset. Anything less than 2 TB can be taken for the medium dataset range. Okay. Large, anything greater than 2 TB, we can definitely consider it as large data set. Okay, the next question is whether the medium data set, which is of 2 TB range, fits in your RAM or not. And what would be your answer here? Absolutely, right? So I'll put an N here, which is no. And large, obviously not. Okay, again a no here. But if we come to your systems, local systems, 2 TB, can we have 2 TB data set in a local system? Is it possible? Ajay says maybe. True. Yeah. But yeah, maybe we can have, but it depends, right? So what is the storage? So let's put yes here. But can we have more than 2 TB datasets in our local system? What would be your answer for this? No, definitely yes. So this is a no here. Okay. So when I'm talking about scaling down to a single computers or single systems, or even when you try to make clusters with your colleagues or friends, it's all about like how you can manage your memory, right? So if it's a small data set, you can definitely manage it, but however you will have some complications in terms of speed and everything. So these are the complications. These kind of complications are what we are trying to reduce using Dask. And how we will do that, we will definitely see in the forthcoming slides and also in the case study. Okay, I hope you guys are pretty much clear with this idea of small, medium, and large data sets, right? Yeah, obviously we can talk about big data as well, but yeah, there are other frameworks to deal with big data. Dask can also be used to handle those things, right? Okay, so let's go forward. Let me just clear this thing. So Dask interfaces are something that I will talk about now. So interfaces are nothing but the similar kind of things that we have like NumPy and Pandas and scikit-learn. So in Python, we have this simple things called to do computations, mathematical computations, you have NumPy. Okay, so in the similar way, so you use a lot of arrays and all these things in NumPy, right? So in Dask, you have this Dask arrays, which is parallel to NumPy. And if you talk about data frames in pandas, so you have pandas in which we deal with data frames, right? So in a similar way, data frames, Dask data frames are something which are parallel to pandas. And in machine learning, we have scikit-learn, right? So if you do ML, if you want to do ML, we have scikit-learn. So in Dask, we have Dask ML, which is parallel to scikit-learn. So these are the different interfaces that we have for Dask, and we are going to see these interfaces one by one, right? First, we will go to arrays, and then we will come to data frames. Then finally, we will see the machine learning part. Okay, so let's go to Dask arrays. So Dask arrays are basically the NumPy arrays. They are similar to NumPy arrays as we have in Python, but the only difference that we have here is that you in Dask you will have those in terms of chunks. So every chunk here. So this is, let's consider this is one NumPy array, and this is another NumPy array. As you can also see the label here, this label. So this is a NumPy array, right? So the collection of all this different chunks of NumPy arrays, or maybe arrays, let's say arrays, right? So all this collection will create a Dask array. Okay. So now if you get this thing, when I talked about memory issues, right? So let's say you have 4 GB system and you have a data set on with which you have an array list with a lot of values in it. Okay. And you're not able to scale it using your 4 GB system, right? What does Dask do is in that scenario, it's going to break down this entire array into chunks. So this would be one chunk, this would be second, this third and fourth, right? And it's up to you. It's up to your system, and it's up to you to break it down into various chunks. We will see that in code as well. Okay. So this is what consists of Dask arrays. So if I want to give a very simple example here, I'm going to take a array. Sorry, let's say 7, 10, 20, let's say 10, take 10, then 1, and 5, 7, So this is an array. Let's consider this is an array. Okay. Now, what does DAS do? So it's just a simple example. Just take the analogy here. So an analogy here is to understand if we have this kind of computations in a very large manner, then how we're going to deal with it. So let's assume that my system is not going to take up this arrays, and what I'm going to do now, break it into chunks. So I'm going to break this chunk here into one part. So in total we have 9 digits. I'm going to take this particular thing and break it down into one chunk. This is the second chunk and this is the third chunk. Okay, so here now I have 7, 10, 20 as one chunk in my task array, and here I have 10, 1, 5 as another chunk in task array. Third one is 7, 9 and 10, right? Now in task, if we need to do computations, right? So the first thing is the restriction that you have is that your memory, your RAM is not compatible for doing such calculations. But if you want to carry out this calculations, because we are taking example here, and if you want to do the calculations, what you'll do, you will break down into DAS will break down this into chunks and then do the sum. Let's say you want to apply sum here. If you want to apply sum here, the first chunk would give you a sum of the operation would be dot sum, similar to what we have in Python. So as I said, right, there is a lot of familiarity between Dask and Python. So all the functions that we use in Python would be used here: sum, dot mean, dot describe, everything, right? It's only that the computation is done in such a way that it will only do the computation when it's needed, right? Otherwise, it will not use your memory, basically. So here, the sum will give me, let's say, what is the digits? Okay, 7, 10, 37. The sum is 37 here. Okay, so the next sum I will get for this is 10, 5, 16. And third one is 19, 26. Okay. Now, finally, you can again write basically the code of sum to aggregate that to get the entire sum of this array, right? So now what this will do, you will apply the sum function here, and this will give you the entire sum, which I think closely amounts to just 79, I guess. Yeah, 79. Yeah, so this is the total sum that you get from here. See, this computation, which was impossible for the 4GB system, so I'm just saying the example here, right? So it has broken down everything into chunks, and then it applied the sum function, and then it gives the result which is called 79, right? So that is how the computation is done in task arrays. Okay, I hope you guys are clear with the idea of task arrays. Yeah, if you are doing missing value treatment in task, yeah. Yes, I'll show you that, definitely. Sunil, we are going to show you those things. Okay, data science, they won't be loaded in. Okay, this is an answer to. Yes, neural network, you can definitely do it. Possibly, like if you have a good system, if you have 16 GB RAM or more than that, or if you want to create a cluster, yeah, you can do that. Yeah, it's built on Python, RG, yes. Okay. All right. So guys, please give me a yes, whether are you guys clear with the concept of task arrays? So we'll move forward. Dvijin, he's saying, can you explain again? So Dvijin, it's pretty simple. See, you have one NumPy array. So let's consider this as one NumPy array. Okay. Or let's consider all these digits as one NumPy array. Okay, I think you're pretty much familiar with the concept of NumPy arrays, right? So this is one NumPy array, and if you have multiple sets like this, or if you have more numbers, or numbers in your array. Okay, so you can actually break it down into chunks in Dask. What you can do in Dask, so you can you can break down those an array to into different chunks, multiple chunks. Okay, so you will break down here, break down here, break down here, then this, like this. You can do multiple chunks and then load it into your system as a Dask array. So that's the aggregation of chunks of NumPy array is called a Dask array. It's simple. That's the definition of Dask array. If you Division, are you clear? Okay. Okay, let's move forward and we will go to Dask data frames. Again, simpler concept what we had in NumPy arrays, but this is applied to Dask data frames, right? So Dask data frames are nothing but if you have, so these are like the index values which you have in your CSV sheet or something. So if you have this one CSV file with 50,000 rows, let's consider this as one pandas data frame, although you can have more rows in pandas data frame, but for example, we're considering this as one pandas data frame. And in a similar way, if you have so the okay, I'll ask you one question. So what is the maximum limit that you have seen in loading a CSV file in Python? What is the maximum number of rows you can load? After that, you will get some problems, maybe memory issues or something. 1 million, yeah, possibly you can do 1 million, right? 65K is less. So 1 million is something that you can do easily, but beyond that, you will definitely have some issues, either some memory issues or something else, right? So in the similar way, if you want to load 5 million, 6 million, right, 10 million, something like that, so that's where Dask will be helpful, because if you are looking at a data set which is of 5 million rows, then probably the size of the data set would be something around 5 GB. And if you have a system which is 4 GB, probably you will have trouble in loading this data set. So there you will have out of memory issues happening. Okay, so Dask is pretty much simplified in dealing with out of memory issues, and it's going to simplify your computations, right? So in that sense, a pandas data frame is something that, let's take this is one pandas data frame. The aggregation of multiple pandas data frames. Let's say there's one more pandas data frame, and there's one more, and there's one more, and finally there's one more, right? So all this aggregated together will form a one Dask data frame. So this is the Dask data frame. Okay, so that is how the Dask data frames look like, and we are going to see that in our code as well. Okay, guys, I hope you guys are clear with the concept of Dask data frames, right? Neha, how will it handle visualization? Okay, yeah. So the visualization part is something that like we need to explore, right? Definitely, but I think you can do, because it has similar APIs what we have in Python. So probably you can work out with packages such as matplotlib or Seaborn or something. But however, so the main purpose of Dask is to do the parallel computation, right? So it's a library which deals with more sort of parallel computing, right? It's going to deal with your out of memory issues, right? And if you have systems which are like low in RAM, then probably it's going to help you in that. And if you want to create models which are with large data sets, probably it's going to help you with that. So definitely visualization is an area that you can explore, and definitely you can find something on it. Okay, so I think guys, we are clear with the pandas Dask data frames concept. Let's go forward. So next thing is Dask ML, and in this we're going to look at how we can use scikit-learn, and there's another library called joblib, and how we're going to use our cores, system cores, the CPU cores, to fasten up our process to actually work on models which consist of like large data sets, right? Obviously, at some point you might face issues even though you have a 16 GB RAM system. Probably there would be some issues, but however joblib is something that can take care of. Otherwise, if then also if you're facing some issues, then you can go ahead with forming a cluster. Okay, so cluster creating a cluster is altogether a different process. So we will have shared some articles for that, so you can go through that article and work on your cluster. So for cluster you need to have multiple systems, right? As I told you the concept of cluster, right? If you have your colleagues or friends can form a cluster and you can work on that cluster. Okay, so here the thing is, the idea is to create use scikit-learn, the scikit-learn API. Okay, we have daskml API also, but probably so we cannot right now we are not able to use that thing because there are some issues with that. And secondly, we have joblib, which is going to give you a same kind of function which we do in linear regression in scikit-learn. So in scikit-learn, if you like any machine learning model, if you pick up, so if you have this parameter defined called njobs is equal to -1. So what is this going to do? It's going to take up all your CPU cores and distribute the computation on all those cores, right? So let's say your model was running on a single core or maybe a dual core, right? So what this function or what this parameter in your model, machine learning model will do is to parallelize or distribute your computations on your entire cores present in your system. Okay. In a similar way, joblib is a library. It's what this is what so this kind of functionality is what joblib is doing in our Dask, right? So for creating a Dask model, Dask ML model, we are using scikit-learn, we are using joblib library, and we are using our CPU cores, and with that we are going to run our model. Okay. Okay, so let's go forward. So this is the area where we have to understand how Spark is different from Dask. Okay. So I know a lot of people might have worked on Spark and they are familiar with Spark, or maybe they are not familiar with Spark, and Spark works on concepts of RADs, right? And Dask is altogether a different thing where you don't need to worry about an ecosystem because Dask is written in Python completely. So the one advantage we have is let's take all of you, right? You guys started your course of let's say CDF using Python. Okay, then you did your GCD or probably doing your GCD, and if if you want to expand your knowledge, you will probably go to GCD AI. Okay, so everything here is done on single language, and the common language that we have is Python. You will learn CDF in Python, you will learn GCD in Python, you will learn GCD AI in Python, right? And you will master everything in Python. Now, if altogether, if you want to shift from Python to a different framework wherein you have multiple languages, if you talk about Spark, we have Scala, we have SQL, okay, and there is a Java component as well, okay, and yeah, so there are multiple languages involved, and probably it would take some time for you to get adopted to that ecosystem, the Spark ecosystem. And if I tell you that whatever the Spark is offering to you, you can do that in Dask with only Python, by only learning Python. So isn't that a great thing for you guys, right? You don't have to put in extra efforts to learn Spark, although it's like a most um, valuable tool in industry. But still, you can do everything what Spark does in Python as well, or using Dask and with the Python APIs, right? So that is one of the best thing that you have in Dask. And although it provides support for R and Python both, but it only supports Python here. And this is what you have mastered in. So you have mastered in Python in analytics, in machine learning, and even in GCDI when you build computer vision models, natural language processing models, everything, right? So see, you might have an advantage here, right? When you're dealing with a lot of big data sets here, so image, right, audio or video kind of data sets, right? And those are like big, large data sets with a lot of GB. Then probably DAS can help you to scale up your computations or parallelize your computations or distribute your computations in your systems, right? So that's where it will be pretty beneficial. And as I said, it's completely on Python ecosystem. And as I said, Spark has its own ecosystem which you need to get adopted to. You need to learn it altogether, right? And one best thing is it uses Pandas API, it uses NumPy APIs, altogether it uses Python. So Python APIs are something that it utilizes, and you guys are pretty much familiar with Python APIs, right? So that is one of the advantages. And all these points which I was explaining, so it's summed up here in the last point. If you see, so it says generally it is preferred by Python practitioners. So I assume all of you are Python practitioners, although we give out R. You can learn R here, you can learn Tableau here, but the main focus that we have here is Python. So you can focus completely on Python and you can become experts in Python. And eventually when you start working on data sets and or as a data scientist, you will be a Python practitioner, and this is where DAS will help you to scale up your computations, right? And on the other hand, it's easier and is easier to understand and implement for users familiar to Scala and SQL, right? As I said, you need to jump into various other languages to get started with the Spark framework. Okay, so these are differences that we have for Spark and Dask, and definitely Dask is going to come up pretty much easy for you guys because you are like Python experts, right? Okay. Uh, all right. So I think let me just go through the chat once. Sunil Kumar, PySpark, and yeah. So see, the differences that we have discussed are pretty much similar in those cases as well. So there's nothing big or small in that case. How then Swifter different than Dask? I mean, I don't have an idea of Swifter. Sorry. Okay. So guys, I need a yes here. Whether are you guys clear with the differences? So let's proceed for the case study. Chitra, is does seem to be used in rich source file systems or are local systems to give capabilities of file system? Yeah, so see, you can use for rich resource file systems also, but the main aim is to make your own local system computationally efficient, right? So all this time I was talking about this 4 GB RAM system, right? Which is the conventional that people tend to buy always. Although we have 8 GB, 12 GB, everything, but people generally buy 4 GB, and then they will have issues of scaling up the computations, right? There you need to understand how you can scale, and that's what we are showing. Let's say you have 4 GB system and you have a 5 GB data set for you with you, and now you're facing memory issues, right? So there, how you can do that is what Dask handles. Okay, I hope Chitra I answered your question. Okay, great. Okay, guys, let's move forward. So now the next thing is the demo case study that we have. So let's go to the demo case study. I hope you guys can see my screen, right? All right, great, great. Okay, So the table of contents looks like this. So we have introduction, problem statement, and then we have some installations to do, importing libraries, and then we will come to Dask arrays, data frames, and we will use this Black Friday dataset to implement the ML model that we need, right? So the problem statement is pretty much, so if you want some introduction about Dask, you can find this here. So definitely we're going to share this case study, the PPT and the data sets with you guys on the LMS, right? And you can find that in Insight Thursdays, definitely. So the problem statement is pretty simple, and I think you guys are pretty much familiar with this dataset of taxi fare prediction, right? So here you need to predict the taxi fare based on users' previous data, right? Like location and drop, pick up and drop, and all these things, right? So the first thing you need to understand to installing libraries is that you need to use simple pip install Dask, and here I have hardcoded the version 2.22.0. So you need to run this code and you will be able to install. However, if you guys face any issues in implementing the code, or there is some error coming up, right? What you need to do, you can do this, you can use this code lines to do the conda install, right? So conda install is nothing but you can just go to your conda terminal, and right now my terminal is working, but here once you go to your terminal, you can just copy paste these codes, right? The first code that you need to do is to do conda install Dask, okay? And then after that you need to run this, okay? And that will definitely help you to install Dask, and you will be able to run this entire notebook on your system, definitely. What is the data size and how much is your RAM? Yeah, I'll show you definitely, Arijit. So the practical implementation is to show everything what we have discussed in the PPT, right? So I'm going to talk about my RAM and dataset we have taken everything. Yeah, please hold on, and we will definitely cover all those things. Even when you have 4 GB RAM, even 4 GB RAM, only for to use OS. Yeah, true, Aditya. Yes, that's true. So that's why I was talking about, right? So if you take even 8 GB RAM system, and if you have a data set of 10 GB, so that's what going to, or maybe 7 GB or something. So that's going to give you some issues, and the computations would be pretty late, and even loading a data set would take a lot of time. Maybe let's say 15 minutes or 30 minutes. I'll show you that thing in this code, right? That's what happened with me as well when I was preparing this case study for you guys. So yeah, we will definitely look into all those things. It's 2.220 which we will be using. Yes, absolutely. Okay, this is the answer. Be larger than your RAM for yes data set. Yeah, right. Okay. Okay, guys, let's move forward. So installation, I have made it pretty clear. First, you need to run this code to install from your notebook. If any issues comes up, then probably you can use the conda install option here, right? You can do these things. Are we guys clear with the installation part? Okay. Next is, so I'm not going to run any of the code because it's going to take a lot of time. So for example, okay, I'll come to that, right? So you need to import these libraries, pandas, numpy, datetime to compare what is the time taken. Okay, then we will have dask.data frame as GD. So similar thing, right? We use alias of pandas as PD, simple, and for numpy NP. You import dask.data frame as GD, dask.array as DA. Okay, and then you have this Dask distributed, which is going to distribute your computations to different cores, and joblib is the one which I told you about, that we are going to create ML model using joblib. Okay, now coming to this code cell, which is client. Okay, so now this client is the system that I'm using right now, and the information that we have here for the client is that there's a scheduler and there's a dashboard. So if you look at the dashboard, this is how the dashboard looks like. Okay, so you will have a dashboard for every task that you're doing in your Dask framework. And cluster. So this right now I have not created any cluster. It is only my system and it's working as a cluster for me. Okay, and in this, the workers which I'm talking about are the codes that we have, and the codes that we are talking about are the logical processors that we have. So if you want to understand what this means, let's go to task manager of our system. Yeah, So go to performance tab. Here, if you can see, this is my system. Okay. Now here, these are the cores I have in my system. So it's a we have 4 cores in system, and the logical processors we have 8. How is it possible? So cores are like CPUs. Okay. Let's simplify this thing for you guys. Cores are like CPUs. So I have 4 cores here. Don't bother about the drawing, guys. Okay, these are my 1, 2, 3, 4 cores in my system. And logical processors are nothing but they are split into two. The threading happens here. So this every core is split up into different kind of threading. So if you have double layer threading, then probably you can have two within your one core. You will have 2 logical processors. It's like 1, 2, then again 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So if you compare this diagram with what I have shown you here, right? My cores are 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. My logical processors are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so I have in total 8 logical processors on my system running, and the memory is 17. So okay, you might have questions why it's 17.09 GB. I'll come to that. Okay, my system memory is 16 GB. I'll tell you that thing. So it's a 16 GB system, but why my memory is showing up 17.09 GB? Okay, so to answer this, I'll go to task, go to workers. I clear drawings here. If you see here, this memory limit is given in GIB. So if you understand what is GIB, right, and you convert that into GB, you will get 17.09. You can do the calculations in simple Google. So last time when I discussed in rapid session, we talked about maybe byte, right? In the same way, we have GB byte here, so which is equivalent to 1.043 something. I don't remember the number, but if you convert from, so if you add 4, 4, 4, 4, it's 16 GIB, right? And that convert that into GBs, then probably what you get is this thing. Okay, 17.09 GB. I hope that's clear. Yeah, it's RAM. Yeah. Kedar, it's RAM. 16 GB is the RAM. Storage is like you can have 1 TB, 2 TB. It's up to you, right? Local system storage is something different. RAM is something different. No. Ame, it won't work on Google Colab. That's why we have picked up Jupyter Notebook. Because see, it's altogether different framework, right? Even if you do Spark, so some of the CPU model does not have the provisions of software thread, then how the Dash will perform. Dash. Suresh, we are talking about Dash here. I'm not sure that you're talking about Dash here. Yeah, it's RAM. Kedar, it's RAM completely. How the dashboard got created? So simply click on this link, this dashboard link. It's auto created. You just get into this thing. The dashboard appears, right? Then you can go to different tabs here and you can check your memory allocation, everything, right? No, see, Google Colab is something that you'll have this memory for a small period of time, right? But what we are trying to scale up here, although see in Google Lab you can get wonderful GPUs and the memory depending on what kind of GPU you can select, right? You will have a lot of wonderful GP Tesla and all these things. But Dask is specifically used for your local systems. So if you are facing troubles with your local system, then that is where you can use Dask. I think that's clear, right? Yeah, it might work on Google Colab. I'm not pretty sure about it, but see, the thing is, if you want to parallelize your computations on your local system, that's where DAS can be pretty much helpful. Because if you talk about Google Colab, you already have everything in place. You have GPUs in place. So when we talked about Rapids, right, we had a GPU allocated to us, Tesla, right? There's a Tesla K10, P10, P, all these things. Okay. I think, guys, you guys are clear with this client concept, right? So it shows the ports you have in your system and the logical processors you have and the memory that is allocated to your system. Okay. Okay. Let's go forward. Now coming to task arrays. So it's simple. The same code that we use. Instead of using NP, we use DA, task arrays. So I'm going to create an object called array, and in which we have DA range function. I'm going to give 21 as a size, and chunks is equal to 7. I'm going to create chunks of 7, right? So this code has been executed, and if I call array here, so you need to understand the difference here. If you call this object, it's not going to give you the results that you are looking for. So that is what task does. So it only computes, it only executes the code when it's needed. Otherwise it won't. This is how it conserves the memory usage. Okay, so once you execute, then the object would be created in your system, and it's going to consume some memory, right? So instead of doing that, it's going to just give you the output like this. So as I said, we have taken array of like 0 to 21. So we have digits from 0 to 20, I guess. And now this 21 things is split into uh, the chunk size is 7. So here chunks is going to give you 7 size. Okay. So now you have 21 digits, and you're going to split into chunks of 7. So here you have 0 to, let's say, 6, and the remaining 7 numbers here, and after that remaining 7 numbers here. So this chunk size is 7, this chunk size is 7, and this chunk size is 7. So you have chunk size of 777, and in total how many chunks we have? We have 3 chunks. Okay, so this is the 3 chunks we have. Okay, total size of the array was 21, and the chunk size was 7. Okay, and it's created the object. Okay, now if you want to look at your array compute, usually what you used to do in Python, so let's say uh, you want to create range. Okay, you used to write this code, and you need to execute it, and then if you call for the array object, you will get this array object displayed, and the output will be like this, right? But in task, instead of doing the computation right there and then and consuming the memory, what is Dask is going to do? It's going to conserve the memory, and it's going to show your output like this. And once you use this function called compute, so this is the essential function that you need to use always, right, to see your results. You do array.compute, and the resultant would be your array that comes as like this. In a similar way, if you want to find mean for that, so again you're going to put this array.mean, but it's not going to show you the output. Like the mean would be like something around 10. So here if you see array.mean.compute, it's going to give you 10. The mean of this is 10, right? But once you do this thing, execute this code, it's not going to give you, because it's not going to be doing the computation there. Only when you add this compute option or the compute function here, then it's going to do the computation and give you the result. Okay, that's how it's going to conserve the memory, and it's going to scale your process, right? I guess we are clear with the concept of arrays. Any questions? So lazy evaluation, Raja, lazy evaluation and eager evaluation is a difference between both NumPy and pandas, what do you call Python and Dask, right? So the difference is, so when you take Python, it's going to do the eager evaluation right then and there. So when I say eager evaluation, it's like you get the results there itself. Okay, but in Dask, it's going to do the lazy evaluation. So that's how Dask is designed, right? So it has blocked algorithms at the backend running. So blocked algorithms is nothing but the way I said, right? A NumPy, multiple NumPy arrays are converted into aggregated and form a complete Dask array. So this block algorithm is going to break this into chunks, different chunks, okay, and then make it as a Dask array. And after that, it's going to do a lazy evaluation. Lazy evaluation in the sense it's not going to do the computation. So when I say lazy, there's no computation involved here. It's only going to take up your code and evaluate it and just show you the result output like that. When you put in this dot compute option, then it's going to do the evaluation and go show you the result. So that's the difference. So there's an eager evaluation happening in Python and there's a lazy evaluation happening in Dask. Okay, Raja, is that clear? Okay, great. So let's move on to Dask data frames. So now this is a data set that we have taken, which is of size 5.69 GB. And this is a data set that we have is called New York City taxi fare data set. Okay. So the size of this data set is 5.69 GB and it has more than this records, I think. Yeah. So now if we have this kind of data set, large data set, and if you try to run it on a system, so you compute the size and then you load it with pandas. So if you see the time that it has taken, so it's going to be around 7 minutes 23 seconds and some microseconds. Okay, so do you think that this is a lot of time in terms of loading a data set? What would be your response? Right. Uh, any more responses? Yeah. And 7 minutes only for loading data set is something that probably you need to think of, right? In terms of conserving your time and resources and everything. And let's say if you have a data set which is more than this, in terms of, like, let's say it's 10 GB or something, and then it's going to take almost half an hour, something, 15 minutes, depending on your system. So again, I want to reiterate here that my system is having 16 GB RAM, and that is the time it has taken. What about, think about people who are working on 4 GB RAM. I think once they start loading this dataset using pandas, the issue they'll get is the out of memory issue. So there you will face your first issue of out of memory right in the beginning, right? And this is where Dask will come into picture and help you guys to scale it up, right? So whatever we have discussed till this point, it's going to come up here. So I did my df dd.read csv, simple as same as what we did in this one. Okay, same code, nothing different. See the time, few microseconds. Can you guys believe it? I think this is the exciting part of this entire case study. I was like, yeah, what is configuration system? Yeah, it's i5 16 GB RAM, Santosh. Dask is loading the CSV faster by engaging multiple cores in parallel, right? Yes, yes, Sumit. Yes, absolutely. That is what is happening right now. Okay, but how much will it take to compute? How much will it take to compute? So there's no computation happening here. So it's just loading the data set. So computation will go forward. It is very fast, right, Santosh? Yeah. So that's the most exciting element happened, right, when I was working on this data set and creating the case study. So there was a drastic change and difference, right? So 7 minutes I waited just to load, and in between I had multiple thoughts that my system was not working fine. They were like I was not able to operate my system completely, right? There was lot of latency, lag issues happening. Okay, and when I started with this thing, last thing, it took only few microseconds, and I was like, boom, this is super awesome and super exciting, right? Okay, next thing, if you want to look at your data frame, so DF, guys, remember DF is a data frame. DF1 is a data frame that we are using for Dask data frame, and DF is a data frame that we are using for Pandas. So we will look for DF1 from now onwards. So when I executed this command, usually when you do it in pandas, if you do df in pandas in normal Python, so it's going to give you the structure of your data set. But here it's not going to give that, because what it has done, you need to take a like put focus here. So this is the Dask data frame structure, and these are the column names, and this is the n partitions that happened. So the Dask data frame has been broken into 90 partitions, if you remember the concept that we understood in the slides, right? So the Dask data frame is the aggregation of multiple pandas data frames. So let me just reiterate here. So this is one pandas data frame, this is another, this is third, fourth, like this you will have n going on. Okay, so this is one, this is two, this is three, four number. So this is pandas data frame. PDF. Okay, so aggregation of this total is Dask data frame DDF. Okay, so you won't see your values like the row values or the column values. You will only see the object, like the data types, object, float, everything like that, and we will see the partitions here. Okay, and how you're going to see your data set, we also come to that. Before that, you need to understand what is n partitions. I think you might have questions like what is n partitions and how we can do the partitions, right? Okay, I'll just go to this function and do my shift tab here, and if you guys see this thing called block size, okay, let's go to block size and understand what is block size. So number of bytes by which you cut up large files. Okay, how you want to cut your entire large file of 5.6 GB data set. That is what the block size parameter does. Default value is computed based on available physical memory. Okay, so whatever RAM you have, it's based on that, and the number of cores that are present in your system, up to a maximum of 64 MB. Okay, and can be a number like this or a string like this. So now another question would be popping up in your mind that how it's 90. Okay, let's take this number. I'm going to copy this number here. I'll create a code cell. I'll copy this number here. I'll divide this by the size of my data set. Sorry. So size is this. block size. Oh, okay, so guys, I'll come back to that definitely. So let me just check that once. Okay, so we are done with this. Now, if I want to check my columns, you can run this df1 dot columns, and you will get all your column names here. Then, if you want the describe function to work, again you will run this code description. Let's say you're putting this at you're naming this object as description, and here you do df under describe. So again, if you run this code, you're not going to get any output the way we get in normal Python, right? Only when you do description df.1 describe.compute, that's how you get the entire output of description. So here it's going to do the computation as you can see, right? So see, whatever computations you're doing, it's going to show up here. So yeah, so like I'm not able to grab this. Okay. So this is the arange function that we utilized. All right. Okay, so as I said, like you need to use this compute option. You can compute it, and then you can get all the resulting output that you need to see, right? In the same way that we did in this, right? And we did a compute to get the output. So in the same way, we need to do the compute here, and you'll get the compute also. Next, if you want to find some missing values for your data set, similarly, you write df1 dot is null sum dot compute. So once you do compute, then only you will get the entire missing information, missing values in your data set. And if you want to drop any null values, you can utilize the same code here, the way you did in Python, right? And if you want to check the type of a data frame, it says dask.dataframe.core.dataframe. Okay. So here we are doing some pre-processing steps in order to run the model. So these steps are like you are actually keeping those values which have fair amount greater than 0. So if you have all this in your data frame, you'll have all the values which have greater than 0 fair amount. Here you're putting this variable called longitude change and latitude change based on your drop off longitude and pick up longitude. And now you're splitting the independent and dependent variables y and x here. Okay. Now let's check the type of this independent and dependent variable. So our dependent variable has the type dask.dataframe.core.series, and the type of x is the independent variables is a data frame. Okay. Now one more thing that you need to ensure here is to convert these into arrays. So here we are going to create df2 is equal to x dot values, and we are going to convert them into arrays, and df3 y dot values, and we are going to convert them into arrays, because the computations happen in terms of arrays here. So if you want to run your the Dask is going to take up your arrays, and then it's going to do the computation. So for that, we need to do this compute chunk sizes, and it's going to convert our complete entire data set into multiple chunks. So we had n partitions, right? So these are the 90 chunks that we have, and the size of each chunk is like this with 9 variables. Okay. And for df3 also we did this again, 90 chunks. So let's come to model implementation. Just a second. Okay, so yeah, there are like some limitations and drawbacks, definitely. So that's what we discussed in the differences of Spark and Dask, right? So it's only used for Python. You can use it upon only Python, basically. So it has Python APIs. It's designed over Python APIs, right? So that is one thing. And if you want to deal with, so a lot of organizations use Spark for big data, right? So there is one thing. And okay, you can have a dashboard while executing code simultaneously. Yeah, yeah, right. Jimna says once we will attempt, we can check. So we have covered it as sound delayed. Okay. Yeah, yeah, you can try. So we are going to give the code, Jigna. So you can try the code by yourself. All right. So this model that we are going to run is for the taxi dataset that we have here. So this taxi dataset is not going to be implemented because we have memory issues coming up, and we are not able to execute the code because the dataset was too large, and on top of it we are not able to create a cluster for it because like right now we are working in remote locations, right? So basically the thing is, if you form a cluster with your colleagues, probably you can create a cluster and then execute it. And the issue was it's a 16 GB RAM, so probably for implementation you need more memory to for the model to run. So here we have given a link for this cluster creation, so you can follow this particular article and you can create a cluster for yourself by utilizing your colleagues systems or some other people or your friends. Instead of that, we're going to use this Black Friday dataset and create a model for it. So for that, I'm going to yes, load dataset from my system, local system. So one more thing, you need to make sure that you have to create your datasets from your load your datasets from your local systems, right? You can do that from your local system, and then you need to follow the same process that you do for your pre-processing and data splitting and all these things, right? So again, these pre-processing steps are done here. So you see the head here, and then you do the value counts for your variable gender, and if you want to, okay, let me go through the data set here. So here we need to fit a linear regression model for the purchase variable, right, based on their purchase history and the kind of products they have bought. And we also have here the user information, the user ID and the gender and age and all these things, occupation and which city they belong to, all these things. So you have to use this thing, the information, and fit in a linear regression model for this in order to predict the values for purchase. So after doing all these things, after computing all these things, finally we are going to take up variables. So all these category variables, and the target variable is purchase, and we're going to create a dummy variable using this Dask data frames, and we're going to create a dummies and compute it. Now The data new variable has the target variable. And finally, you can run this code with joblib. So you can see here also. So you import joblib, and then with parallel with joblib.parallel backend task, you can create this environment that joblib wants, right? So as I said, right, so there's a n-1 issue that we have. N jobs is equal to -1. So this is the parameter that you do to distribute your computations to your entire course, right, in your system. So the same thing is done by joblib here. It's going to take up this joblib.parallel backend and use this DAS backend here, and then implement the scikit-learn linear regression model. And the similar way you do the linear regression, right? You can do that here and fit the model. So that's the thing that you do for this as well. So again here, parallel backend DAS, and then you fit the model, and this model is you'll be able to execute the model essentially. So that's how you create a model in DAS. And yeah, so this is about the entire case study that we have here. And all these functions are similar to what we have seen about the compute, is null, and all these things. So guys, like if you guys have any questions, so we can take up the questions. Yeah, Samir, we will be sharing PPT with you guys on LMS. So you can find the PPT, case study, everything on LMS in say Thursdays. Yeah, Raj, you need to do the dot compute option, right? So that's going to, okay, maybe tail. Did you do the compute? See, head always displays the first rows. Yeah, definitely. But if you do it in Dask, you need to do the compute option also. Right? Like in Pandas, you do it simply df dot head, right? So it gives you the first 5 values. I think it should work, Raj. I need to check it. Like you can drop an email to academics, we will see it. It is giving memory error, then what is use of task? You have system and data is only 5 GB. See, Ishwan, it's not only about loading the data set. So you need to, so I'm doing processing in my data set, right? I'm creating a model. So all those things comes into, so it's not, so when once you call the compute option or the function, and it's going to take up all the computations that you are doing in your entire model. Yeah, pretty much everything. You can find all the functionalities that you have in Pandas. So little bit like if you think that there are things that are not working out, then probably you can do some research about it and you can find. Guys, we are here for your questions. So if you have questions, then we can take up your questions. Otherwise, we can end the session. Yeah, thanks a lot, Jigna. Uh, Tata Naidu, you have a parameter called n underscore jobs is equal to -1, where you can utilize all your cores of your system for your model. So if you need a detailed explanation of this, like probably like if you're running a model and you want to implement that, then you can go to the documentation and check for the parameter and yeah, yeah. Thanks a lot, guys. So if you have any questions further, please we are here for like for the next 2 minutes. Otherwise, we will wrap it up. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, guys. Yes, recording will be uploaded to the LMS, and you can find it in the NCA Thursdays section. Thanks, Jaya. All right, guys. So I think we don't have further questions. So thank you, Aditya. So we will end up the session. Thank you, Banu. Thanks a lot, guys, for joining. Have a good night. Bye.